the alternate minister of the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Theodoros Skylakakis, is actually leads the process for the Greek of the Greek RRF. So, Mr. Skylakakis, the floor is yours.
Well, as Mr. Veta has said, Greece has a peculiarity that it has to face two major crises within a 10-year period, less than 10 years. Crisis unprecedented. I remind you that the Greek crisis was the biggest crisis for a Western country after the Second World War. And then the pandemic is the biggest economic crisis after the Second World War worldwide. So two major crises within 10 years is a very big challenge. And during the first Greek crisis, the major problem of the policies that were enacted was that they left a huge investment gap, an investment gap that has created disinvestment since, if I correctly remember, 2011, and we are still in the disinvestment ground. So we have, before we entered the second crisis, we had about half the EU average in terms of, or the Eurozone average in terms of investment as percentage of GDP, which means that essentially the Greek production capacity frontier has diminished all these years and was still diminishing when we came into power. Now, it was not only investment that had the production possibility frontier diminish, it was also the human capital, because part of the Greek human capital left the country, people left the country, very competitive people, internationally competitive people, that's why they left, they could compete internationally. And also another part of the Greek human capital disappeared from the economy, either staying idle, getting into a trap of subsidies plus black work, or not working at all, as it happened to young, mainly to younger people and to women. That's the problem that we have, is huge, both in terms of human capital and in terms of productive capital investment. So the way we are trying to tackle this problem is twofold. One is to accelerate and add reforms that will get the much more investment in the country, and to reactivate our human capital and turn back some of it. To get more specific, this is the wider picture. To get more specific, what we're doing with the RRF in order to be able to tackle this is move. Before I go to that, sorry. Also, Greece, because of the structure of its economy, was worst hit in terms of GDP compared to other countries, because it has a lot of tourism, but also its tourism is much related to air travel, which was particularly hit more than the other kinds of tourism, and cruises, which was also particularly hit. Plus, it had a lot of clients outside Europe, from US, from Canada, Australia, China, Israel, Russia, where the markets were totally closed this summer. So you had a country that has been hit from many directions. Now, how we deal with it? One thing is that we pack our RRF proposal with reforms. It will need an hour to discuss in very little detail these reforms. I will just say that a government that has already passed the insolvency law during the pandemic now is going through reforms in labor, in justice, in active and passive labor policies, in the World Bank's ease of doing business, in digital transformation of health, introducing therapeutic protocols, and in upskilling and reskilling, in R&D, in many areas. We're going to introduce reforms together with the investments of the RRF, not because the RRF is an instrument that has also reforms and investments, so it's an obligation, but because as a government and as a country, we really want to push forward with reforms. We understand that if we don't do so, there is no way that we can get out of this double crisis and this double trap of low investment, and both in physical and in human capital. Also, we are trying to mobilize a lot more resources using the RRF. So we are trying at least to double the amount of money that an investment is going to go into the economy through the RRF. We want to go closer to 45 to 50 billion. And for this, we propose to use the loans to mobilize private investment. I remind you that Greece has 200 basis points more costs for its companies when they want to do an investment using loans. And this is not a level playing field with other European countries, essentially because of the banking system and because of the country risk. Greek companies cannot do investments at the same level as in other Eurozone countries. So we want to introduce the loans of the RRF as a way to mobilize private investment, and also not to put more pressure to a fiscal situation, which we must always be very, very careful. So this money will get back. They will increase, obviously, the debt, but then they will get back. The Greek state will get them back, and the debt will be much lower after we do this program. We also use a lot the private and public partnerships to mobilize more investment in public investment, so to increase the whole impact of the RRF. And we try to incorporate most of our targets, both the country specific recommendations and the Pisaridis report targets within our RRF plan. We've measured it's about 74% of the Pisaridis proposals within the RRF, and almost all the country-specific recommendations. It's sometimes that when we discuss the Commission, we have to find a way to split the targets between the enhanced surveillance and the RRF, because we put so many country-specific recommendations there. So it's a very ambitious plan. Time is of the essence, and Greece has a unique opportunity to get out of this trap this double trap of low investment in both human and physical capital. The IMF has been saying for years that our long-term growth perspective is 1%. We don't believe that. We want to change that. And with the RRF, hopefully, and with the Commission's help and wisdom, we're going to change that.